Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our second ever Higher Education Tableau user group meeting. We are going to be recording this session, so if you have to cut out early or if you want to go back and rewatch it, you're going to have that option. We definitely encourage you to join our Slack group. It's a Higher Education Tableau Slack group if you haven't already. This is where we do a good deal of communicating. We help each other out with issues that we're running into and just generally have discussions surrounding the use of Tableau in higher education, something that we all are passionate about, I hope. So if you haven't already joined, you can use the link in the chat box to join that. And you have to sign up using your .edu or equivalent email address. And if you have any issues getting signed on, just message us in the chat with your email and we can send you an invitation. So at today's meeting, we are going to have our Meet a Community member, which we do every month. This month, we're meeting Ken Flerlage. We are going to hear from Jessica Lyons, who is going to talk about Tableau for teaching. We are going to hear from Frank Alexander Rojas about using IPEDS, NSD, and internal data to profile student leavers. And we're going to announce our logo contest winner at the end of the meeting. So if you haven't gone to vote, you have until the end of the meeting to do that. Our 4 finalists are showing up here. So there is a link in the chat box. You can click on that and go vote for your favorite. Voting is anonymous, so don't be shy. Winner not only gets bragging rights, but you also get to win some swag from the Tableau store. So, this is a pretty big deal. All right, so without any further ado, let me introduce Ken Flerlage, who is going to be interviewed by Roshni Gohill.
So, hi everyone. So what Ken is helping us do today is do our inaugural Meet a Community Member Spotlight. So Ken Flerlage is from Bucknell, and you've probably seen his name. You've probably read stuff that he's posted on his blog. You've probably also heard him talk. But you may not have realized that he's actually a member of the higher ed TUG community. So Ken, thanks for being willing to chat with us.
Thanks for having me.
So the way this is going to work is that I have a whole list of questions that we shared with Ken in advance when we twisted his arm to get him to agree to do this. And I'm just going to ask them and Ken's going to answer them until we run out of time. There'll be a little bit of a lightning round at the end full of some fun things that Ken may or may not be ready for. So let's get started. So Ken, tell us a little bit about yourself. So describe your role and your team.
Right, so I am Associate Director of Data Analytics at Bucknell. Essentially, I lead our data analytics team, and that team is within the IT organization. It's a small team; it's just 3 of us, but pretty good for the size of our university. It's been a big focus for probably close to a decade of making sure that we're making data informed decisions. So our team is responsible really for the platforms, the systems. So Tableau server, of course, also our data warehouse and a few other data analytics platforms. We're too small to do all the work, so we do a very much of a self-service kind of environment. So our role is to kind of build the data warehouse and provide people with really good data models, and then teach people how to use the self-service tools like Tableau. So we act as internal experts and consultants and trainers and those kinds of things. And then, of course, outside of work, I play with Tableau a lot. It's kind of my hobby. So I'm a 4-time Zen master. I have an identical twin brother, Kevin, who you may know as well. He's a 2-time Zen master. I'm also a forums ambassador, so you may have seen me on the forums or communicated with me. And then, of course, you can also check out our blog, flerlagetwins.com. We've posted hopefully a lot of good, useful stuff pretty much on a weekly basis there.
So in your non-work Tableauing, what kind of data do you enjoy working with the most?
In my non-work, I think if you look at my Tableau public profile, you'll see a fair number of things around politics. Religion has always been super interesting to me, so I'll find interesting religious data sets. There's one I did that I found all the words of a variety of religious texts and kind of analyze the word usage, and I thought that was interesting. they tend to be, my brother always jokes that he does the fun topics, things like Adam Sandler and, hot dog eating contests and things like that. And I tend to do these more serious, more important things, I guess, than him. Yeah. So those kinds of things are what interest me.
So what about in your work tableauing? How much do you actually build Tableau? Do you yourself build Tableau, and what types of data do you work with there?
I mean, we do build some, we kind of get called in for maybe things that are more complex or something that has a really short timeline. Generally speaking, what we're trying to do is teach people to use the tool so that we don't have to, right? Because we know that eventually we'll become a bottleneck if we're doing all the work. But I did a fair amount of tableauing during the pandemic. We built our COVID dashboard, and I've been responsible for that. We built a really cool tool that we call the social density map, which looks at different spaces on campus and Wi-Fi connections and tries to give an idea of how many people are in the location so people can be smart about social distancing. But generally speaking, I mean, since we work with everyone in the university, so, certainly we work with a lot with student data, but we're also working with financial aid and admissions and fundraising and tutoring data and, just about any kind of data that we have on campus, we're working with it at some point, whether it's just helping people that are, working with that data or doing something directly with it.
So what's your favorite project that you've either sort of internally consulted on or actually worked on at work?
Yeah, the thing I mentioned before about the social density map, the mapping of the Wi-Fi spots was a really interesting and fun and pretty challenging one for a variety of reasons. So that was kind of had a nice cool factor. But probably what I've enjoyed most have been sort of outside of the administrative aspects. I mean, one of the things I've tried actively to do is get involved with, with students, with faculty. So I regularly do guest lectures for a variety of different professors. I work with we have a summer digital scholarship program where we have 4 or 5 students that are doing research, and I work with that group. So I think the things that I have loved the most, particularly, I've only been in higher ed for about 5 years. So particularly, with not having that background, I think I've found the most value and most joy out of those student projects and seeing, how students take what I've shared and then have applied that and built something really cool.
So what's your favorite Tableau feature to teach?
To teach?
Well, actually, hold on, let me step back. What's your favorite Tableau feature first? And then
yeah, so this is a tough question. Because I mean, they're just constantly adding new things, right? I mean, I think if you looked at like the more recent features over the last couple of years, parameter actions was to me was a game changer for creating better sort of user interactivity, user interfaces. So I love that one. But I think just in general, to me, it's like it's all about the platform, right? I mean, if you compare Tableau to other tools, I feel like other tools often are, you sort of select a chart and you plug some data in and you get your chart, right? Whereas Tableau, you're kind of building it from the ground up using the marks card and the shelves. You're telling it what to do. And because of the way that the tool was built, you can kind of make it do anything in the world. And that's one thing I enjoy doing with it, is trying to force it to do crazy things, right? So I think for me, it's just that sort of the way the foundation of the platform is built that allows you to do pretty much anything in the world that you would like to be able to do.
So what's one thing that you wish that Tableau newbie you would have, or that you could tell Tableau newbie you, or that you would tell someone who's just starting out in Tableau?
It would absolutely be, and so I have a blog on my website, 4 tips for mastering Tableau. And I have a lot of the tips of things I would recommend to people right away. But I would say the one thing that, if I was to talk to myself when I was starting out with Tableau would be, that there's this thriving community out there, that the user groups like this one, Tableau conference, all the different virtual events, as well as in-person events, and then just like, Twitter and the Tableau forums. There's these great people that are actively sort of sharing their knowledge, and it's so easy to learn when you're just sort of watching what people are doing. And I wasn't aware of that for probably the first 3-4 months of using Tableau. And when I discovered that, it was really sort of a game changer. My skills advanced quickly. I gained new sort of virtual friends and this sort of community that was always willing to help and really is always there for you when you need a push. So I would say that's the biggest thing. It's just really find ways to get involved in the community, because I think you'll be happy that you did.
Excellent. So we're now going to go into our lightning round. Start with Red Sox or Yankees?
Red Sox for sure.
Yes. Sorry, I live in Boston. Another one that's near and dear to me, Dr. Pepper or Mr. Pibb?
Neither. Ooh.
Oh, I don't know if I can talk to you anymore. So what do you
I don't
prefer
know.
instead?
I don't remember the last time I had either of those, and I'm sure I couldn't tell the difference between them.
All right. From Eric, toilet paper roll, over or under?
It better be over, and if I see it under, I'm gonna switch it to over, because it's just wrong to do it under. I don't know why anyone would do that.
All right. So you mentioned parameter actions earlier. So within Tableau, sets or parameters?
If I can do something with a parameter, I will. I think they're easier, more straightforward. There are times when you need to do something that's like multi-select. You can't do that with a parameter. So I'd probably say both. I use the one that is most appropriate for the task in front of me, I guess.
All right. Pie charts or donut charts?
Ooh. Neither.
You got to pick one.
Donut, I guess. I just think they look nicer, and I like that you can put sort of a key number right in the middle to give it an indicator. So they kind of work as this sort of combination of a pie chart and a band, if you will.
All right. What about a donut chart or a waffle chart?
Boy, I don't know if I've ever created a waffle chart, to be honest with you. So I would say probably, and they're hard to create, and I just don't think, I don't know. I tend to do something other than either of them. I'd probably, if I had to choose, maybe a donut chart, I guess.
All right. So who's the better tableauer, you or your brother?
You don't even have to ask that question, do you?
I mean, 4 times Zen master versus 2 times Zen master.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Right.
We each, even though we're twin brothers, we each bring our own sort of different perspectives on it, and we've both made each other better, I think.
It's all part of having that community, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Kevin tells the story about, I moved away 20 years ago and he still lives where we grew up, and we didn't really talk that much until, he kind of started doing Tableau, and now we talk or, text or tweet or whatever every single day. Like, it would be a weird day if we didn't communicate. So in this weird way, Tableau's kind of brought us together to be best friends again.
Nice. Well, thank you, Ken, for being our first Meet a Community Member Spotlight. So our plan is to have one of these spotlights in every single meeting that we have. So if you out there in the audience are interested in chatting with us, or someone who you think would be a great person to spotlight, feel free to reach out to the TUG leads, either through Slack or just chat with us now in the meeting. And yeah, so thanks again, Ken. And
Yep.
I'm gonna pass this. Yeah, I'm gonna pass this back over to Ginny.
Thank you so much. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Jessica Lyons from Tableau. She's going to be talking about Tableau for teaching. So Jessica is a senior program manager, and she is a teaching adjunct psychology professor, a data strategist, and a mother of 4 amazing individuals. So Jessica has dedicated the last 8 years of her life to data analytics, teaching, and program evaluation. After spending nearly a decade working in various areas of education, she also served on the Board of Education for School District 428. She was the chair of the Illinois State Board of Education CCOP Committee and the District Data Analyst Account Manager with NWEA. So you can see she's done a lot of stuff. She also founded a small consulting business and presents at a lot of different educational conferences. So I'm sure that we can learn a lot from her. and she's going to talk to us about Tableau for teaching. So Jessica, turn it over to you. And we can see your screen.
Awesome. Well, my name is Jessica Lyons. Thank you so much for allowing me to come today. This has been a great pleasure to meet you all. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about Tableau for teaching. So we are part of the Tableau community, but we are under academic programs, and we are the Tableau for teaching is the program that I typically run. I think everyone in the room already knows that data and the consumption of data has become huge right now. As a matter of fact, we just did a study with Forrester report, and it was stating that recruiters are still having difficulty finding data literate people entry into the workforce. In addition to 40% of them are actually stating that they're having difficulty positions because of the lack of the STEM skills. So with that being said, this is about a month old data. What I typically do is I'll go into LinkedIn and I'll just do a little bit of search for Tableau software, Tableau skills. And as you can see in the different regions, whether it's the United States, EMEA, and APAC, that Tableau is a platform that is definitely used, and it is a skill that is needed in the higher ed space. And so with this feeding frenzy of data, that is the reason why we know that we are really trying to help navigate this space. Another thing that we are noticing, which is why we have Tableau for teaching and we have Tableau for students, is that the data science or the math courses, typically to get into a data science program or to get the skills for data literacy, are usually absent in the curriculum in high school. So there is a huge gap there. In addition to underserved populations seem to be paying the highest price for this. So with that being said, Tableau is on a mission to create a data literate world, which is why we have the Tableau for Teaching program, which again is on more of the philanthropic side of it, because what do we offer? We offer free licenses if you are an instructor at a credit-bearing university. We also offer Tableau for teaching, Tableau for students. So students can also get free licenses. So not only can you get the desktop, you can also get the prep builder, you can get Tableau online, and included in that comes e-learning. So we have e-learning discounts for certification for students and for instructors. With not only that, but we know that time is of essence. So we know instructors do not always have a lot of time. So with that being said, we have an instructional designer in our house who actually helps create curriculum. So with that being said, this curriculum is free. And if you have Canvas, we do have modules for Canvas Commons that is also available. Or you can also get a package that can be imported into any LMS system. So with our free course curriculum, we have data literacy 1 and 2, in addition to data visualizations, journalism. We also have overviews for the desktop training. The social media analytics are also another one. In addition to pretty soon, we will also have curriculum in healthcare. So we're really excited about this. Not only that, but with that, we support universities across the world, actually. So whether it be, for example, we have lab licenses. So if you have even a virtual lab, a lot of people are starting to have centers for data literacy. And so with that being said, these centers can either be on campus, it can be off campus. So example being where I'm at, the NAACP has actually gained access to having lab licenses. And what does that mean? Anyone, whether they have access to a computer or not, can come and get e-learning and get the skills for Tableau. Yes, it does also apply for K-12 as well. So if you are an instructor teaching students at a public entity, then absolutely we can get licenses for K-12 all the way to the university level. Again, with the goal being on the philanthropic side, the objective is teaching students Tableau. In addition with that, we also do TFT workshop days, so Tableau for teaching. So often I will work with universities and I'll hold workshops in different departments. in order to learn more about Tableau for teaching and how to utilize it. Another great program for us, again, is the Tableau for students. So recently I've been doing a lot of student orientations. I actually feel like a recruiter now. So during the student orientations, we are explaining to students that they can actually, as soon as they get accepted into the university, they can get a Tableau for student license for completely free. We have student ambassadors that can help them. We just had a resume workshop that was held for free for students in order to create visualizations and create their resume utilizing a visualization. Where am I going with this? The benefit of it is that students, irrespective of them being in the course yet, they can actually start ramping up their skills on their own. And we have a student resource page that has tons of information for students in order to prepare them and get them, because again, our major goal is getting students ramped up so they're ready for the workforce. I will stop there simply because I want to make sure that I leave time for some of the other things. So example being, we do have lunch and learns that are also great that we would love for you to come out and learn. So example being on Monday, we will be having e-learning plus certification. So what is that topic for? It was led by our Tableau for Teaching user group based on the things that they wanted. They wanted to learn more about, hey, as an instructor, how can I increase my own skills as a user, in addition to how to design a course utilizing Tableau for Teaching. So how to customize those e-learning materials. And then the last piece behind it is that we will also be talking about how to prepare students for the Tableau to become certified in Tableau. So how to get them prepared for the desktop specialist exam. So with that being said, we have lots of activities. We do lots of community work. In addition to, we are open to coming to the school if you're interested. So again, with our lunch and learns, we've had social work department from Carleton University come out. We've had data visualizations where people have shared their syllabi, they've shared their test banks, they share their materials. So that way we can engage and really work on this mission for creating a more data literate world. Thank you guys so much for having me here. I will, in the chat box, if it's okay with you, I love to include some of those links. So one, if you're interested at all, in addition to giving my email address, that if you'd like to collaborate, you have any ideas, please, by all means, I would love to have the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Definitely put those in the chat group. And Roshni also put the link to go vote for the higher ed logo. Once more, you have until the end of this meeting to vote on your favorite. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next speaker. Frank Alexander Rojas is a research and assessment analyst at the University of Maryland, College Park, where he's worked since 2016. Using various research and assessment designs, data collection procedures, and analytical tools to capture student, faculty, and staff information. He is also working on his second master's degree in measurement, statistics, and evaluations. So Frank, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk to us about your levers.
Thank you, Virginia, for that wonderful introduction. I appreciate for being given this opportunity to be able to speak to everyone in the higher education Tableau user group. Once again, I thank you. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. All right, so how do we get started? So us at ORPA, we submit the IPEDS outcome measure on a yearly basis. But when we just submit the aggregated report, the numbers. However, if you've ever submitted anything to National Student Clearinghouse, you would know that there's a detailed report that comes with it. Well, before we came to this project, it's just been sitting in our warehouse. I mean, in our network drive, doing nothing, just collecting digital dust. And then, we've been having these questions come up, as you can see on display. How many students are leaving UMD? What are the outcomes of these transfer students? What kind of institutions that these students are going to? And why did the student leave UMD? They go to another institution like us? And before going further, this is the 99.75% product, final product. There's still some tweaks here and there to do, but this is what one display of what the final report looks like. Now, what I'm going to go over is the planning, the software, the steps initially taken, issues concerning National Student Clearinghouse, the student data, the IPEDS data, and I'm going to depart with some takeaway messages that I hope you all take with you in your journey, for if you all plan to attempt to do this as well. All right. This meme categorizes this whole experience. It's a lot. This is the most complex data structures that I've had to deal with to date in terms of collating and putting together to make meaning out of. So, based on the questions I displayed to you earlier, we defined the population of interest, which is we're grabbing the 2 full-time student IPEDS outcome measure CSV files per year, and our interests are first years and new transfers. So it's a total of 4 CSVs for each year. Then when we're looking at the NSC record type, we went with looking at the last instance of the record and looking at the record immediately after UMD. One is going to look at student success, while the other one is going to mostly answer the question of did they really, like, at their first reaction, did they really go to an institution that's similar to UMD? Then we needed to figure out what kind of IPEDS data we needed, and we went with looking at institutional characteristics. And in terms of the student characteristics from our warehouse, we went for looking at the last GPA, residency, gender, geographic code, and race ethnicity. Throughout this whole process, there was constant data checking, and I documented everything along the way, including the decisions that were taken by others that required an executive decision. The software used SAS, for the querying, SAS Enterprise Guide. For the dashboards, Tableau. But I needed to use Office, specifically Excel, for some. There were some manual data editing that I needed to do, and then Word for an actual documentation process. Now, the first steps. This is how I organize my SAS EG process flows. I made one for collating all the CSV files, one specifically for cleaning the NSC data, one for pulling in the internal data, and then finally adding in the IPEDS. And this is how this is just a look at how it looks, how the first step looks like at collating the CSV files. Next, NSD cleaning. We removed all student observations with UMD degrees, as well as summer enrollment data, except for the graduations. The reason behind removing the summer enrollment data was due to that because most of the summer enrollments tend to be students who end up taking courses at another local institution and then just transfer it over back to UMD in the fall for the following term. But if they graduated, like I said, if they graduated elsewhere, we kept that. And then the process flow is then divided into two tracks. One is to look at the last record, and one is to look at the most recent information after leaving UMD. And when you look at the last record track, this is the prioritization that we took. If the last record is UMD, whether that's enrollment or or degree, we deleted all those student records. That's not the purpose of this report. But now after that, we prioritized that the student must have had a 4-year institution highest, with their highest degree being a bachelor's. That's our number one. Now, NSC data, for some reason, there were instances where they reported a graduate degree, but for some reason, their bachelor's was not recorded. So if they had a graduate degree, we prioritized as a second because that was still a success, because they must have had a bachelor's in order to go to grad school. And then the lowest priority was their enrollment record. They had an enrollment record elsewhere, but they did not graduate. Now, that doesn't mean that they're still currently enrolled. So they could have potentially dropped out. Now, in terms for the record of enrollment immediately after UMD, we went with a prioritization that we used for another report. And the first priority was to look at their enrollment status. Being full-time, because most of our students are full-time students, was our number one priority. Null record, we decided to go with that as our number two, because since most of our students tended to be full-time, if an institution did not provide that information, we were more than likely to think that there were also full-time students at that institution. Then we went with deceased, because they were still enrolled at that institution for that period of time, and they unfortunately passed away. Then we went with 3/4 time, half time, less than half, and then withdrawal, and then they had a leave of absence. After meeting that first priority, we then looked at whether they came from a 4-year institution or a 2-year. 2-year being the lowest. That's our priority. Since we're a 4-year institution, we want to look at 4-year institutions. Now, one of the biggest issues that I came across with was identifying bachelor's degree. There is no, unless anyone else here knows an easier way, I could not find an easy way to find a bachelor's degree overall. I literally had to see all the unique values of degrees and manually pick and copy it over into a case statement, and then make a separate data check to see what am I missing that begins with a B, but I still have to go manually look at a filtering, because some institutions do not have a bachelor's degree that start off with a B. And if you can see here, I'm sorry for the tiny for the tiny text, but some institutions offers honors bachelor's of science, or Regents bachelor's of arts, second bachelor's of arts. So this is one of the most manual tasks I had to deal with National Student Clearinghouse data. Second, as I already previously mentioned, the graduate degrees. They don't distinguish between undergraduate and graduate schools. It's, if it's a grad school, they also consider it as a 4-year institution. And as I said, the missing bachelor's, there were instances of duped bachelor's degrees. I kept the first instance of the date of graduation. And then there was also instances of duped enrollment records. I used the last, the end date, the max end date for the record. So whatever was the last enrollment of the date, whatever's the last date for that last enrollment record, I use. I created a term enrollment to start bringing in our student data. So it's for us to filter on. If the record was not found, then it's assumed to have dropped out. But those records are also kept in the last and the first instance for the report. So they will show up twice, but unique at what filter option you pick. And this is how that process flow looks. And as you can see here, I document throughout. And I also, when I name a task, I'm very detailed about the tasks. There's no limits on the naming of the tasks. I literally say, this is where I add this variable. Now, moving on to the internal data. I bring in the clean National Student Clearinghouse data. I use our end of performance records for for GPA, their last major in College of Advising, and their last class standing. And I make sure it's the officially enrolled record. And I prioritize the fall and spring records first, with the same, because the same mindset that summer tends to be, even within our institutions, the summer student population is slightly different. And this is what that flow looks like for when I add in that student population. It gets cut off because it's a little complex. Next, it's the IPEDS data. All right, I merged in the combined National Student Clearinghouse data. The first thing I needed to do was I had to do a specific sorting on main campus OPID because there are dupes in IPEDS data. Like, as you can see here, like the upper right, that's my filtering. I had to do it that way because for some reason, the online schools have the same main campus OPIDs. And so, and what I noticed is that the first instance in the IPEDS order is the main campus. So that's how I was able to make sure that I'm merging in the main campus data if it was a duped OPEID. I then check if for what institutions did not match. Where you will not find matches are if NSC reports an international institution or the institution is now officially closed. All right, this is the most crucial part in this step. I initially created an institutional characteristics checklist because we are also manually adding other characteristics. For example, are they an AAUIP institution? Are they a Maryland public institution? I would then create a I would then upload this master list, add it in back to the original data, and I tested it with a new file to see, am I going to pick up new institutions? Spoiler, you will. So then I made a stream where I actually, go about, make sure you're updating this, and like find what the new institutions are missing, add the missing information in, and then update the master list and re-upload the master list to capture your new institutions. And then the final data step for this whole process is it ends with creating a variable for institutional state and student geographic state origins matching to one another. And then we output a CSV file to upload into Tableau. Now, here are some takeaways. Note when you're answering, keep those questions with you at all times. This process is going to take a while. Define your population. Read the data documentation, the National Student Clearinghouse, the IPEDS. Know how they come up with those how they define those columns that they give you back. Because one of the reasons is that more than likely, because of your whatever prioritization you use, you're not going to match 100% with either IPEDS or with National Student Clearinghouse, but you are going to get close. Organize your pathing. I gave you examples of how I did that personally from what works for me and how I provided notes and documentation. Data check all your steps. Whenever created a new task, I want to double check if I'm fully correct. It may require manual checks. There was an instance where I actually checked 400 students because I couldn't believe that I was getting that number. I was like, no, there's something wrong with my filtering. There's something wrong with my joints. No, it required me to sit down and check 400 students manually to see that I'm actually seeing what I'm supposed to be seeing. So again, once again, document as you go. Have others check your work. You know, I'm sure everyone's gone through this step, but we get into our own mindset and we tend to lose focus on if we're double checking our work or not. We need fresh eyes. Be flexible to change. Others might bring up new ideas that may require you to go back to pulling the data again and changing your query around. When issues come up, provide a reason for handling the issues. May require an executive decision and document it, write it down. So others who will pick up your work will know why that decision was taken. And this presentation only covers the data querying side. There's a whole other set of things involved with that final 99.75% product that I showed you. And if you're attempting to do this, you can always email me. Here's my email there. And I'm sure you could also find my email, and I will be glad to help you in any way I can with answering your questions. And thanks once again, thank you all for giving me this opportunity to present. And if you have any questions right now, you go ahead and ask away.
So we don't have any questions in the chat right now, but if you are, you feel free, if you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself to ask or to throw them in the chat, and you know, we can ask them of Frank. So there's a question. Can you show the visualization again, please, Frank?
Which visualization? The final product?
Deanna? Yeah, can you go ahead and show that final visualization and then, yep, or what was shared at the very beginning?
Okay, sure, 1 second. There you go. The left side, just for a little bit of context, we decided to go with a show and hidden box because this report is very complex. We need to orient the person to know what they're looking at, and this is the best way to force them to read this, so they're well aware on how to use this data.
So this is using the ShowHide Layout container feature that was introduced 2019 point something.
Yes.
Is that right? Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we use that in a lot of our dashboards now too. We have an about container in the top left that we always use to try to put in as much information as we can that we think people would find useful to just, again, orient themselves, figure out why are they here and what can they do here. That's great.
And to answer William's question, we haven't published this yet. We're almost there. We're almost there. Like I said, 99.75. But I know that the leadership is actually looking forward to it. They're well aware that this report's coming out, and they're salivating at this, from what I've heard. And I think Zahir has a raised hand.
Hi, Frank. Thanks for sharing your experience. My question to you is, since you have to use Office 365 and Office components for combining the files, have you thought about using Power Query or Power Pivot to consolidate those CSV or text files of data? Was there a bottleneck to it?
Thank you for asking that. And actually, there is already a step in handling that. We're actually planning on uploading the CSV files into our warehouse. So we're keeping them as we're keeping them up in the data warehouse as its own separate thing. So we no longer have to rely on the CSV. So all we do on a yearly basis is from now on is to just submit it to to our DBs and have them upload it to the warehouse. And I would change the query, so I would pull in the proper year. And then we're also, the master list that I told you that I discussed earlier, we're also creating a table for that as well. So we will be relying on an actual table. And so far, in terms of planning, it's going to be up to me to update that table when needed.
Yep. I was suggesting to, for the case statement, instead of hard coding it, maybe you can put it in a table and all the degrees, maybe have a second column with the level, either, it's undergrad or grad, and then have a relationship in the Tableau, or when you are taking out from the warehouse, you can filter it by the level.
Oh, okay. So actually make those case statements. Thank you. Yeah. So make those case statements already before uploading those at the warehouse level.
Mm.
Okay. Already before upload. Thank you. I appreciate
Sure.
that. Okay. I work in a room.
So Jess has a question. In terms of workload and resources, what size of team and time frame was required to develop the whole product?
Oh boy. Well, here's the thing. This started right at the beginning of 2020 COVID, and that was a struggle in itself. So that actually extended this project as longer than what it should be. So it has taken already a year and a month since we initially started this, and I've been the only one that has really has done the hard work, like collating, bringing together, coming up with the organization. But I have worked with 3 upper management people at the office to make sure that I'm that what I'm pulling, I'm providing proper justification and answering those questions that I posted earlier, and seeing if it, and also if what I'm doing along the way is making sense. So that's already 3 people. Now, in terms of getting others to check my data, it required 1, 2, 3 other people to see along the way whenever to see if I was pulling the correct, if the numbers are making sense to them as well, and the filterings are also working. And then in terms, once it's already on Tableau, that in itself, it has gone through about 4 different QAs, because there has been significant changes with each QA. These are because issues will pop up that not me or anyone else who provided feedback had thought of, and that changed some of the paradigm of how to proceed forward with this report. So yes, it's gonna require, I wouldn't be surprised if you attempt to do this, it requires a year, because it's complex data. And it's a complex report in itself. You have to make sure that you're representing the data in a way that the audience should be able to read it. And as a matter of fact, this report is actually, we're actually creating 3 reports. We're creating one that's called the advance, which is this one, which is the one as I described here, but the other 2 are actually split. One is only focused on the last record, and the other one's focused on the first record. So people that only want to look at one specific thing can go right to that.
I actually have a question, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Yes, I've been doing something very similar to this for years. And so one of the issues that I always run into, and I wonder how you're handling this, is for like the baccalaureate degrees that you're coding in your case statement or whatever, how are you dealing with that, not knowing that a student goes to another institution is going to go where they're going to have another designation for baccalaureate degrees in the future? How are you out there actually looking at those? How do you figure that out?
Oh, I'm only so I'm only looking for in the instance of the last degree. If their last degree was a grad degree, I go down. Like I start actually looking in the past. Okay, what's the next instance of a degree? If it's still a graduate, I go further.
Okay, yeah, I get that part. The part I'm talking about is you had that case statement where it had like BBA or BS and all those that you actually coded, because that's the way it's reported on that field. But how do you know that somebody doesn't go to Texas A&M San Antonio and we have a BAS or something like that that you've never seen before, and you miss those students then, don't you?
Oh,
if you're not actually looking at that.
No, I am looking at that. Well, that's why sorry for not being clear enough at the presentation, but what I do afterwards is that after that case statement, I have a data check where I'm looking, all right, if anything begins with a B, what is it? It spits it out for me. And I go back and spit out a data where I want the distinct values for the degrees. And I go over one by one to see, all right, what's new that I have not captured.
Okay, so you're gonna have to do that. Like every time you run this, you have to just to see if anything new popped up.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I do too. Okay, yeah, I thought you had some master plan that you didn't have to do that, but yeah, that's what I have to do too. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sorry for not being clear enough in the presentation for that.
Thank you.
Okay, and there's been a lot of questions. Do you foresee future questions about? Okay, CP we're using. Before attending College Park. I mean, that will be a separate report. And there I definitely do foresee questions about that. And yes, as a matter of fact, actually, it's already be coming up. First generation, first status. There's this group called First Status, and they're actually looking at this question. They're asking these questions to see if they actually had an actual enrollment before entering said institution. And in terms of visualizing the challenges with visualizing the data, yes, there were challenges because we had to make sure that is the visual actually representing the data as it should be. For example, like I'm still sharing the screen, correct? Yeah. You see the right those bar graphs. Well, originally what was missing was the time frame. So when we reported it, I wasn't thinking that people would not think about, okay, what are they still enrolled now, or they weren't thinking that they were enrolled by the 8th year of the National Student Clearinghouse data. And then I left, and then when I added the updates, I then realized, oh no, I actually have to provide more context, because just because we report enrolled elsewhere, it doesn't mean that they are still enrolled to this day, or that they were still enrolled by the 8th year. It could, so I had to write this important report context on the left side to and provide that example that, hey, the last NSE record for a student at UMBC was in fall 2013, and it's 4 years after their 2009 entry, and we report that as being enrolled elsewhere. But the final outcome of the student could have been dropped out. We're trying to reinforce that, hey, don't think that all of our students are meeting success elsewhere. That's not the intent of this report.
Thank you so much, Frank. I know there are still other questions for you, and we can definitely continue this conversation in the Slack channel. And here's Frank's email address if you want to follow up with him one-on-one. That was a fantastic presentation. Thank you again for being one of our first presenters.
Thank you for allowing me to do that. Appreciate it.
Yes. All right, so if I could get a drum roll, please. We are about to announce the winner of the Higher Education Tableau User Group Logo Contest. Let me just double check. Make sure no new votes have come in. All right. Jessica, do you want to, sorry, not Jessica. Sorry, Crystal, do you want to reveal the winner on our next slide. Oh, that didn't work quite.
I'm using an old slide. Oh no.
Sorry.
That's okay, just 1 second.
It's the problem with doing these things in live time.
Yeah, how about this? Here we go.
Yes.
Hey.
There we go. The winner is our very own Roshni Gohill. So congratulations, Roshni. Round of applause. Take a bow. All right. I'm sure I have a little, reaction there. All right. So just to give you a heads up of what's coming up next. The Tableau for Teaching link is in the chat. There is a lunch and learn coming up in just a few days on August 23rd. E-learning and Tableau certifications is that topic. We also have the Tableau education series. The link for that is also in the chat box. There's a return to campus event on August 24th featuring UT Austin and New York University. That should be very interesting and again, very timely. And then our monthly virtual meetings will continue on the third Thursday next month. We have not picked our topics yet, so if you have some ideas, if you want to present, please send us some suggestions at higheredtug@gmail.com or in the Slack group. We definitely want to have presentations that are important to our community, specific to higher ed. So we want to hear from you about what you would like to see there. And of course, more networking. And I think that wraps us up for this month's Higher Education Tableau User Group. Any questions from anyone in the audience?
I just want to add, thanks everyone for coming. We had almost 300 people in the meeting, at least over 200, something like that in the meeting, which is amazing. This turnout is really great, and we're really excited to kind of continue having these meetings every month. And again, if you have suggestions, if you want to present, let us know.
Yeah, definitely tell your friends. The more the merrier. And we will send out the recording link as soon as that's available. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. See you guys next month.